Hey, what's up, Capricorn? Thank you for taking a look at this tarot reading. This is going to be a general reading, no time frame. It's up to divinity who needs to hear this. I'll have to admit, Capricorn, that last cycle was a little slow. My energy was a little stuck. I just tried to do 3 straight Sagittarius readings and I could not get through them. So I skipped Sagittarius for the cycle to end the cycle. Same thing happened with Scorpio. The first read I had to ditch. The second read came out much better. I have found my energy a little displaced recently, so I am definitely trying to take a slightly different approach to how I do this. So I appreciate that you are here as I sort through some kind of message that divinity would have for you right now. And once again, the goats, they managed to stick with the videos the longest. They continue to show the tendency of having the longest committals to watching the entire reading, which I definitely appreciate. It's interesting that that correlates with other readers as well. So I'm currently at 1:30. I do not have anything clear showing up at the moment. 5 of Swords at the top of that split. Sign of confliction. Not necessarily kinetic, but displacement within an association. It can represent sorting out issues for the better, not necessarily just confliction that is destructive in nature. However, we did not get that to flip all the way out, so we will see if it tries to re-emerge for you. Lovers in reverse on the bottom. Sign of misalignment. It doesn't necessarily have to mean bad romanticness. It can tend to mean that often enough. Alright, so I'm at 2:30. If you need to, Cappies, check the timestamp below to skip to whenever I get the first drop. Because this is, once again, the reading is taking a second for something to come out for you here. Just a little bit on some splits, but nothing definitive. We have the lovers on the splitting of them. And it's a little mixed. It can be a sign of misaligning mind and heart. There's actually a piece of that. With some 5 of Wands, looking at... You could just see a little bit of misalignment from some kind of tough negotiation in the workplace, in a career decision, something of that sort. Fire energy though, and Gemini, which is wind, not exactly your earth energy, and no signifier of an individual. And the cards want to split there. 2 pages in reverse. Knight in reverse. I do have 1 card here. But it did stick on the bottom of the deck, so I'm going to see if I can get a clearer sign than that. Sword of Lovers reversed could signify reaching a state like this, misaligned happiness. nostalgia that no longer serves the same way. Something really wanting to flip out there. A good sign, maybe something will shift out here. Just a lot of confliction in these signs so far. I don't know about that last sign because I might have just stuck on my fabric. Let's see if I can get something else for you. We have the Five of Wands on the split again. We have the Wheel of Fortune going on too. So there's a double correlation on the split for Five of Wands and the Lovers. That is a, it once again doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It has the capacity to be a workplace dispute, typically, because that's sort of where problems get sorted out for the better often. It's not just some sign of a physical dispute on the street at random or something like that. And you could have, it can feel very dissociating to realize that maybe your idea needs to lose, or that there's a better idea, but you're fine with that process. But at the same time, it can kind of disrupt your internal confidence. And sort of what's signified by the Lovers reversed is that dissociation between your mentalism and your heart, which could kind of have some Six of Cups significations in terms of mixed emotionality. And we have the kind of, this is even more cards of strife here. Defeat to Valor, though, is a signification from this. And sort of, it's kind of what I was talking about, was being defeated in workplace, but seeing the valor in understanding that that discourse is for the better. It's not like it's, there are, I guess more specifically is I'm trying to suggest that you can go along to get along to a certain extent. And as soon as I say that, the Ten of Pentacles on the reverse. So not a cool sign for where I was going with that. So kind of let me rephrase that. It does show some internal fortitude that you will put aside the fact that you were wrong to get along with what was right. And that's part of the valor that was seen in Seven of Wands. So even though defeat was on hand, it's not reversed Five of Swords. You're not in a paranoid state about it or some kind of personal negativity. It's not a bad sign that you will get stuck in some kind of negativity that stalls your growth. It's a good sign that you are of the capacity of moving along with a better idea than your idea, and you're understanding that you understand the value in that, or it is maybe calling you to understand the value of that. Two nines on the bottom. Nine of Pentacles on the bottom. But still we haven't had zero definitive answers at 9:17, so all I've done here is ramble. And I forgot to mention that I've got this new fabric on my setup here, and it is messing with the light, how the camera captures the light. If there isn't enough camera color in the scene. So it usually takes a couple cards before it will come out. So I apologize. With the Lovers on the bottom of the deck. So this turning this energy around could help you get to the point where your idea is chosen to a certain extent, because you will seek for greater capacity. So that's interesting. And it is a good sign. And we have the Seven of Wands right underneath that. And just so you can see that. So we've got tons of correlation here with this idea that being strong enough to accept other people coming up with a better idea, and for the greater good, so to speak, you're willing to go along with putting your idea aside because you can see the merit in the other idea, and you can put the sake of the greater union to more effect than being selfish about your own idea, which means it's a form of strength, even though it's a form of surrender at the same time. And that's where it can possibly be intimidating perhaps to admit that you were weak, or at least weaker, but admit that you were not the strongest, or that your idea wasn't the strongest. But if you're in that Lovers in reversed energy, it's going to be harder for you to come up with a better idea because you've displaced your mental and emotional capacities, whereas the Lovers in the upright is more about that energy being aligned and flowing properly. And I've decided not to make it romantic in any capacity. In the event that, you know, there's feelings for these people that you were achieving with, which is marginally natural, there could be some depth of feeling involved in the situation as well. And finding this Valor is shown here as a good sign that that energy flows better in that regard as well, because it's an energy that better serves the situation often enough. So it's interesting how that is correlating, even though I can't get anything to drop out here. Interesting. Just a little bit of something from the read, I guess. 13, 14 minutes, and then I saw 1, 3 through 7, and that's pretty cool. So maybe that's enough for you, and I should end this reading. It was kind of a strange read. I feel like I was able to get to some depth, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get any other clear messages here, so maybe I'll give it another shuffle or two. But I feel like that could be a good spot to end the reading, because that's a very helpful attitude to have in a work situation. And as soon as I say that, I get the Eight of Pentacles in reverse, Capricorn energy. And it signifies shoddy craftsmanship to a certain extent. It can signify sort of underhanded craftsmanship that is used to leverage for a large amount of money. And so it has a swindly notion to it to a certain point. Sorry, it's a little bent up, buddy. But it can also signify perhaps a sort of lazy effort at producing something of quality. And it shows that through the quality of the pentacles that the craftsmanship was perhaps not of the greatest quality possible. Sort of speaks to, it kind of speaks to laziness. Lazy, or unwilling, sort of speaks to unwillingness to sort of an unwillingness to accept that quality does make a difference. That the utter reality of something's quality speaks for itself once you've put it into material form. And in the reverse like this, it's very simply a signal that a greater effort could have gone into the quality of some completed work. And that could help to explain why the effort might not have been rewarded with the applause of everyone else, because there just happened to be, based on the evidence of the other ideas, a little bit more evidence of the efficacy of taking that route. So me personally, there's been times where I've done interviews, and because I wasn't prepared enough for the interview, it just didn't help me look good for the interview in terms of having projects prepared to show to people. And so when you're sitting there trying to convince someone you're capable, and you like have your project in a busted state, and it has to be recompiled, and you have to fix a bunch of errors, and it might not even be hooked up to work off the front end anyway. Like, not the time to have that going on. And not being adherent to the quality of your effort is sort of what this is suggesting. It's kind of got the ties of both. It's got the ties of the underhanded craftsmanship dealings, which is just people trying to rip people off to a certain extent. It can qualify to that notion. The other notion is that it's more on what the quality of your effort suggests. However, I've got nothing else coming out here to clarify. Right when I said that I have this, I'm trying not to take these though. But what's interesting is it's the Five of Swords again, which was also in your mix up to this point. And what this is suggesting is that sort of being afraid to lose is part of what's screwing up this craftsmanship. So it's kind of a sign of cutting corners, perhaps, to achieve this material abundancy, but because adherence wasn't given to the quality of the craftsmanship, or an audience adherence wasn't given to the quality of the craftsmanship, the reward didn't pay out in the way anticipated. And partly why that is because the anticipation was a little off place in the first point. And the Five of Swords reverse can signify that the word paranoia is the most recent kind of word I read on it. I used to have a much different idea of this card until I started reading this book, and I got to kind of just glean some insight for tarot. The old idea I had about this card was that it was a sign that the individuals leaving this character in the front see the path ahead, and it is actually the wholesome and utter better path. That is the whole truth of the situation. And the person in the front is the one not seeing the path forward. which signified to me in the reverse that you are the one who doesn't see the path forward clearly. And that is alluding to the potential of not understanding the true quality of whatever you produced. There's not even any wands. There isn't any wand fire energy here, which tends to lean away from. Oh, there was a lot of wand energy, and as soon as I say that, you got the 5 of Wands on the bottom of the deck. So you're at this, whatever this confliction is. I don't know if it's work or perhaps it's just in business, maybe like some kind of business dealings, but there's no career energy. But there's the 5 of Wands is typically career energy, and that's where it's usually happening. It's in some kind of peer situation, directly relevant peer situation. It's not exactly about physically fighting each other. It is about the growth from this confliction, which is just a better way of saying like the best idea rising to the top and being implemented for the sake of the efficiency of the whole process, which is a strong way to have a team set up, because the best ideas will rise to the top, but everybody gets a chance to kind of vocalize their ideas. So there's a way to produce the best idea for everybody, even though it might not always be your idea. So it is career signification. Still no straight clarity though. The Eight of Pentacles flipped out. That was the most clear piece of the puzzle here. 5 of Swords I pulled. It really tried to pop out, and it's tried to come out a couple times. It's flipped its energy on you though. So yeah, I don't know how much else you could really glean from this. It may have. Oh, and I just have the Death card on the bottom of the deck. Sometimes I take that as the reading might be over. So it seems pretty straightforward here, what's being suggested. I'm going to give it a few more chances here to clarify anything, but then I'm going to probably cut this one. It's just been pretty straightforward. Yeah, we do have the 2 cards slipping out for you. Another 5. So 5, 5, 5. This is definitely kind of a sign of not learning your lesson. It's a sign of really being disappointed in how this all played out or plays out. However, this is speaking to the same thing. This is really speaking to not kind of it's definitely speaking to not hearing what I'm saying to a certain extent. This is paternalizing against the advice I suggested of seeing how you can, I hate to use the term serve the greater good, because I watched Hot Fuzz, the guy that made Shaun of the Dead, and there's a way they say it in that movie. They're like, the greater good, the greater good. They're always saying it like that, and they're talking about sacrificing themselves to the greater good, like in a cult-like fashion is what winds up going on. And so when I say the greater good, it makes me stress a little bit about what people think I'm implying about what you're trying to achieve here. It's not to sacrifice your entirety to helping out some kind of collaboration meant for success. But it also has afforded the ability, apparently, for everybody to give it a shot here. So it's really I guess it depends on how you feel about it. It could be really disappointing. I don't know what all the details are. It's showing that it's going to linger on you, big time. And that is disappointing to see. I hope what I had suggested would keep you from worrying about it too much because, well, you would have to accept that. You would have to just accept that you weren't good enough, which is maybe very difficult. We also have 8-8, which is the Lion's Gate. And I didn't make that up, that's a true thing. So even though it's Capricorn, there's some Leo mixed into the mix here. With strength in the 8-8, which is a Leo. Resides in the sign of Leo. It is a manifestational signal. What's disappointing though is you have the strength. You have these cards in the reverse, which is disappointing. A lot of it's all reverse energy. Dang. See, I'm definitely disappointed about whatever this obviously meant a lot to you. Whatever this was. It's not proving the easiest thing to get over. And there was some lovers themselves were in there, so maybe you had extra emotionality invested into the situation. Because it looks like it's hitting hard here. That's what's suggested. And it's like you're going inside of yourself to really try to figure out what's going on, but it can hurt still. And I can sympathize with that. I've been in that situation where it's not that simple as just feel better automatically. Even with all the soul searching internally you're doing, there's just so much raw emotionality, throwing it out of the mix. These three cards all kind of are just signifying the same thing. Jeez. Sun reverse, Ten of Wands reverse, the Devil. And we have actually Capricorn here, so I'm going to take these three because it is Capricorn's energy. This is just more of the same of what I'm suggesting here. This real torment of it, actually. And that's disappointing. I would definitely prefer this reading be for somebody who has already gone through this and it sympathizes with them. The idea that this could happen to somebody because they are self-fulfilled and what I'm suggesting would be very disappointing. So it's not exactly what I'm suggesting here, but you're definitely on, like, it's very... So if you're a Capricorn, what's interesting is that it kind of empowers this card in a reading. It's not like, and I know that's not written in stone anywhere, but the idea is that the best way I've heard it described is it's sort of about looking at your own shadow, which, and it's for the sake of doing that thing that I was discussing earlier about putting aside the personal stake. But to do that, if the person is afraid to admit that they were worse, part of what looking at the shadow is you realizing the truth of you being worse. If you're moving that shadow out of the way, then you can start to rebuild your process on stabler foundation. And that is sort of what the Devil is signifying in the Capricorn energy. It's one way I've heard it described. Outside of and also Capricorn the Devil can come out. Capricorn reads a lot. I haven't had it come out in a Capricorn read yet though, and I haven't had it come out in any other read I've done so far. So the first Capricorn read, really ripping it here, going right under the band-aid. Hydrogen peroxide deep in the wound. So yeah, I mean, I've been there once with myself, and it was, you know, it was. So, you know, I have faith that somebody could feel like this, because I felt like this before. And it's not like your will just makes it better. At least not with myself. I know there's something that I, once again, can sympathize with this. And I am a Capricorn, actually. Capricorn Sun, and I've got 6 Capricorn planets, 5 or 6 Capricorn planets. But that's an interesting reading, and I'm happy that I'm able to get this read to this point, because I've been missing it, like I said, on a bunch of other readings. Just double checking my camera's running. Every once in a while it goes out. So yeah, I don't know what else to do here. It's capping off on Capricorn here. There's really nothing else I can add. I could probably just try and fill out these last two spots for some clarification. Maybe there's a way to turn around from these defeats here, since it seems like a defeat, that your side of the story or whatever wasn't suggested as the best idea, is really what's ringing through with triple 5 of Wands off the deck turns. So, and then you get the Devil coming out, and then 10 of Wands reversed is more career paralyzation, basically. So it's like it's at risk of stagnating your career, basically, is what that's suggesting. And it's simply due, I'm not going to even mince words, it's suggesting that it's due to the fact that you are not embracing the stronger approach, both in the Sun reverse, Strength reverse, and Hermit reverse. That is all failing on internal to external. Transmutation. It's the best word I could find. There's a better word than that, but sort of that's what it's talking about. It's talking about internal fortitude pretty hard here. Sun reverse, Strength reverse, that's all about internalized energy, and the Hermit is an internalized. You're supposed to be hermiting to gain internal wisdom, but the Hermit in reverse is a sign that you're abusing that, and the internal work is not serving you, especially with the Strength in reverse and Sun in reverse. But the thing is interesting here is the Devil is the read that has the capacity to deal with this the best, because their ability to face their weakness is the most palpable of the zodiac signs, is what the insinuation of the Devil being attached to it means. More specifically, though, because that's kind of high horse in here since I'm a Capricorn, it's signaling that, like, how strong the goat can get because it has no fear, I guess. Dang it, I'm missing the freaking line I had. Or it's like goats. I don't know where I'm going with that one. I thought I had something and didn't really pan out here. Where I was going before that makes more sense still. It's like it's part of being strong is that sometimes you're stronger with others, and reinforcing others serves you as much as it can serve others, if in the right setting. And people that serve that system actually do tend to be people that are capable of self-reflecting upon their own shadow and seeing their own weakness for the sake of eradicating it and leading with their strength. So I'm actually surprised the Temperance card has not come out for you here, because the Temperance card is definitely, it takes quality internal temperance to rise above these energies on the edge here. So we'll see if it decides to pop out, but it's correlating to temperance, negative temperance. So like those 3 cards compounded are essentially negative temperance, which which means it can flip around as well. So it'll be interesting to see if the Temperance shows up after this double moment. Or it might not be a double moment, but sort of the revelation of looking at your own weakness to eradicate it, so you can produce strength that serves not just yourself but others. And you gain that strength when you examine your weakness, which requires you to be true inside of yourself. And it requires you to not be lying to yourself about where your faults lie. So it's interesting that Capricorn has this card as their card, because it's almost suggesting that, like I said, we are the zodiacal sign empowered in that fashion. Which sucks, because I went through this and it was hard enough, and if I was a Capricorn, like other people going through this, it probably pretty lame. So I'm not managing to get anything else for you. Like, I can't get any more signs here. Like I said, the Temperance card would validate a lot of what I'm suggesting, but you can't ask for that Temperance card to come out. So I'll only hope it does. Page and Knight of Cups on the bottom of the deck. A call to emotional quality. It could signify younger people. I won't use the term kids, but definitely new agers to a certain extent. People who still have the capacity to dream about their faith and what they can anticipate out of life, stuff like that, and how those new anticipations would make them feel upon experiencing it, being able to enjoy that. Which is a little different from the Sword and Pentacles energy, which is a little bit more, it can be sharper than that. And it can be a lot more, especially in these reverse energies, a lot more, I'm honestly liking a word compared to it, but sort of a call to happiness. Having other people make you happy to a certain extent. Like, unless you can feel better about yourself, but the sign here is not that the inner stuff is working great. So interesting how that split off there. Which is more of an emotional thing. Yeah, I'm still trying to finish out this last set here. I guess the only thing I haven't really covered is the Ten of Wands in reversed. Excuse me. I always mean to say reverse, but every once in a while I say reversed, and it's really strange. So excuse me for that. Ten of Wands in reverse. Kind of a delegation sign. But in the context of this reading, I'd say it's more inclined to a Five of Wands on the bottom of the deck. And I just decided at that exact point to stop, and that's what's on the bottom of the deck. It's in the reverse. Another sign of this workplace conflict in a more negative turmoil. It's lost its constructive capacity. It has now turned into, since it's in the reverse, it has now turned into toxicity, basically. And once again, it doesn't have to be the most severe thing in the world, but to a certain extent, that quality that was successfully working through the problems has faded to an extent, and this conflict is now more about control than it is about solving the problem. The problems are still there, but now there's this like curtailed effect where the problems are having trouble getting solved because there's this inability for the best idea to win at the expense of a little bit of emotional cost on the losers, is sort of what's going on here. And the losers aren't really losers, but I guess they think so, or they're really worried that they'll be considered a loser, maybe. Just because you lost doesn't mean you're a loser. So it really depends on your quality, whatever your quality was of effort. And not exactly effort, but in this context, it's signifying that it was the quality of the decisions you chose to make. Even if you put in even if you made a lot of those decisions, and it's just another sign of this. What I was kind of clarifying Ten of Wands though. So it was the reason you're still stuck in this Ten of Wands reverse is because this Five of Wands reverse has fallen into the mix. So it's suggesting that this disappointment about this, the other, I don't want to say it exactly the way I'm thinking it, because it's a little bit of a button pusher kind of thing. But the idea here is that somebody is very disappointed that they weren't allowed to have their idea win, or they weren't able to get over the fact that their idea wasn't good enough, and they are taking it personal. But in this instance, it looks like all that personal stuff is kind of getting pointed inward a lot. It is signifying here, though, with this card in reverse, that you are bleeding it over into the work life also, the career life. And that maybe it's not you, but maybe after how much people realize this hurt you or something, they would like they would start to feel worse about doing the right thing, which is taking the best idea, and they start to come up with some kind of idea to like not step on people's feelings. But because that happens, the best idea gets quelled. And this Five of Wands and Ten of Wands, fire energy representing primal force, the real source of action, is being stifled. It's not being allowed to flow properly. But part of how it flows is by acknowledging what is the realist, and that often is the most reliable place to put your foot when you are trying to achieve these actions. Which is once again where we're getting to with Capricorn having this ability to see that weakness. With insinuation of this Devil card for Capricorn. It is also a sign of illusion, not listening correctly to these ideas. So due to the fact that you're Capricorn, it's kind of a call that you have the capacity to write this more than anything else here. But it's also synonymous with the reason it's wrong is because you are in illusion as well. So it like double caps this either or, whether you heed it or not. But I really don't. I'm just curious as to what I can clarify on this Five of. Okay, so as soon as I say that I get two here. Okay, so this clarifies the idea that there's a little bit of, I wouldn't say paranoia, but like faulty, I don't want to say faulty either, but like mental. Dang, it's hard to not just say it in a way that's sharp. It's tough. So it's very, these cups are, or these cards are actually pretty cool to see here, to cap off this particular reading. And I've never actually wound it like this. I just decided to match the sun energy. Like, so it's a good sign that you will, it's a good sign that this Capricorn energy is going to do its work, and it's going to yield the proper internal refinement necessary to receive the gift you were looking for in the first place. And maybe not in the same way, but possibly very likely not in the same material way, but it's given you the idea that you could find that fulfillment, that fulfillment is still there for you once you realize how to get out of these energies over here, this internal and external negativism. And maybe not exactly like you're being toxic directly to people, but it's just a ton of energy of being jammed up internally and externally in career after some kind of disappointing event. So maybe lack of promotion. Maybe the idea that just keeps coming to mind is that it was someone else's idea won, basically, and that wrecked your internal confidence. And I know when that happens to me, like, I don't think as straight, and it's kind of what's being suggested here, is that you got smacked off your course by this failure, because it's not just that you failed, it's that failure validates the idea that you're weak. And because Capricorn has this devil energy, which apparently can shed it seeks to shed its weakness the hardest, when us Capricorns have found that what we thought was our shed weakness is in fact still our weakness, it disrupts, in my experience, my mentalism. And the quality of my internal mentalism is shattered when this emotional state is broken. And it can happen whenever I am put down like this, you know, like, I guess reality checked maybe is correct, like when I wasn't quite in the position of success that I assumed I was in. It devalidated my capacity to rely on myself internally, and it spiraled me into, I would argue, a lot of this, especially the emotional capacities. It just was one thing after another, trying to find variety into internal reflection, into just internal fortitude, into just hope. Just every step, it was just the same heavy burden. And like, it was, mental will wasn't just enough to shift out of these energies. There's too much momentum behind the whole thing. And it can hurt that much when you really fail, and it's a super big thing. So like, it's very interesting. I don't know if anybody would actually sit here and watch this whole thing. It would be nice to hear if they did, because I would hate to just be like reading myself here. So anyone who feels like, because this is stuff I've already gone through with myself, and I've gotten over this stuff, so I can see the reality of you being able to not have to be stuck feeling this way, whichever step of this you're in. It could also just be a validation to someone in particular, that it could just be, you could maybe be past this Ace of Cups and you're just like, yeah, holy crap, it did happen just like that, exactly like that. Maybe that's who this is for. Just a way for someone to sympathize with your energy. I'm not sure exactly. That's the tricky thing about this, is that these messages and correlations were here for you. And it's even into some common consensus of stuff like the Devil card actually empowering your reading in particular. And in fact, I've never ever drawn a Devil card in a reading, and it just happens to be in a Capricorn reading. So it's interesting here how this double capacity. This, and I understand that it's like weird to say that the devil's good in this regard. It is just, it's a common notion amongst tarot readers that for Capricorn readings in particular, the devil has a place in the reading. It's not a signifier of the atypical bad devil stuff, like the sinful things. It has more depth in a Capricorn reading than that. And it is the power that would solve this problem, which is weird because of the, once again, bias against the devil. I don't think it's a demonic sign, it's like least affected by the devil to a certain extent. The least willing to accept illusion as your reality. Which is what the hangman leads into in the upright, because that's a sign of finally busting through on some positive internal quality. Finally. You're finally busting through. And that's using, essentially the idea is you would use this process that I'm discussing here of seeing the weakness in, well, I'm not sure exactly, because I'm not exactly sure what's the nature of this particular setup. I just can understand the energies that are coming out here. And this turnaround's pretty good. King of Pentacles flying out here, and that's pretty cool. Maybe you're the King of Pentacles now. That's Capricorn energy, and it was in the upright. Material abundance. What is this? Nine of Swords reversed. I used to read that as a sign of getting over anxiety. My new book is a little different though, and I've got mixed fashion about the new book, to be honest with you. And I kind of like the old Nine of Swords a little better than that. The idea of getting over anxiety was always good. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I can do here. Magician reverse. Justice reverse. I'm very likely grounded the point home, so Ace of Pentacles here. Probably have held on too long. It's just such a tricky topic talking about this double. Tricky topic. There's so much literal, real world thing. As soon as I say that, Nine of Pentacles. One of my favorite cards. The way I used to read it. It's a good sign for you. However you felt from this failure, the Nine of Cups is finally having that thing that makes it to where you never have to feel that way again. Your material abundance finally speaks for itself in a way that you never feel like you have to do this, or that you never feel like you have to possibly fail again, almost. Because when you feel like you could possibly fail, it's so easy for the haters to get you fucked up. But once you've got this Nine of Pentacles secured, they can only hit you with their words on the outside. They can't actually disrupt your internal world anymore. Because your pentacles speak for themselves. That's the thing that always resonated for me about this card. The book says something different. The book just makes it a really general about material abundance, which is part of it. That's part of it, but the more important part for me is the fact that the haters can't get you because your material abundance speaks for itself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be haters, but naysayers, or the people who truly doubted you can't. There's no room for the doubt anymore. Your success finally speaks for itself. You finally have the capacity to not have to rely on what other people think about you. And that's exactly what I want to see after this freaking Ace of Cups arrives, because that's a completely different approach to how things are going. So it's all voting very well. It's a very, very powerful reading, I'd say, so far. I think I'm probably just going to have to end the reading. it's gone down and it was pulled up pretty good. There's another 8 on the split, so 888. 2 9s in the read. I don't think there's anything else we want to clarify here. A sign of moving on, but a sign of victory also, because there was splendor from the incident of this, wherever he got these swords from. Alright. That's it. It was very interesting to be able to get to this depth, so even if one person actually listened to this, that'd be pretty cool, because it does take that energy to call this out. So I really appreciate it, and thank you for my first Devil read ever. I really appreciate it.